Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Wednesday. It's October the 2nd. This will be our chart lesson for today. Before we get started on the chart lesson, a couple housekeeping things. I usually like to, go over a few things before the video occasionally, and today I think is a good time to do that. I've always left the comments on the videos open. I haven't disabled them. For the most part, I've tried to uh, answer them fairly, answer them, as best as I can to my ability. And I've never, if somebody continues to push the point, I've tried to make it clear that, why I do what I do or don't do what I do. And it's come to the point where I've just decided if people want to abuse the comments, I'm just going to ban you. And I realize that people can make up a new name and come back again. But if they keep doing it, I'll just keep banning them. And I don't want to ban anybody, and I want the videos to be available to whoever can view them and wants to watch them. But if you just come in and create trouble and stir up, trouble by complaining or making accusations or asking the same question over and over again, that's just you're only asking it because you want to make trouble, then I think what I'll do is just start banning you. I banned the first person ever today, and I hated to ban them, but most of the guys' comments get hidden anyway because they get so many downvotes, and when somebody starts to get a lot of downvotes and their answers, and their questions or comments are getting hidden by the YouTube service anyway, that's just a good sign that, hey, they're just troublemakers. It's time for them to go. So I banned BV today, BV something another. It's probably the same guy that's been, I don't know that it is, but it's probably the same guy that's been posting under some other names too. And so if the other person continues to cause trouble, or if anybody comes in and causes trouble, I'll just ban you from the channel, and that'll be the end of it. So the videos are free. There's no sense in coming in and stirring up trouble. If you got a legitimate or serious question, ask it, and either me or somebody will answer it. And if that's not good enough for you, or if you continue to push the issue because you don't like the answer, if it's the right answer, then and you're a troublemaker, then we'll just ban you out. And that keeps it open. That allows us to continue to use the comment section, and it gets rid of the troublemakers. And that's the only fair way I know to do it. And again, I don't want to ban anybody. I didn't like banning this guy, but he's just trying to stir up trouble, and we just don't need it. And so I hope everybody agrees that that's probably the right thing to do. And if you got other ideas, I'm open to them. Also, I got a couple of questions. We're doing some testing on the website. You may see a section that you can't get into, and there's nothing there. We're just doing some testing for some future options. And, I don't know exactly where we're going to go with that yet. Could we eventually put the videos behind that section? That's something we're kicking around. But it's just a test. So if you can't get in there, you're not missing anything. It looks like there's some articles there, but don't worry about it. Everything that's always been available on the website is still there. It's still free. So you're not missing anything if you go to the website and you can't get into the premium section, because you can't get in because there's no section really there. We're just setting it up and kicking around some new ideas for future. Whether or not we'll do anything with it or not, I don't know at this point, but it's a possibility that we could even put the videos behind there at some later point. It's something we're kicking around. So if you like the videos and you like them being free on YouTube, you don't have to send me emails. I don't feel like you need to send me an email. If you want to send me an email, that's great, but don't feel like you need to. Just give it a thumbs up or make a comment and on the site, and leave it at that. And if you don't like them, say whatever you want to say, but don't come back and harass everybody else. Just move along. And that way maybe they'll stay free and they'll stay open and anybody can find them. Otherwise, at some point they may go behind the locked portion on the website. And so that's what that area is for. We're just doing some testing, and whether or not we'll get to that point, I don't know. Hopefully it'll just be some testing and nothing ever changes, but it's just something we're kicking around. Let me see what else. Speaking of emails, if you would, we've really grown over the last 6 months for the number of people that are following the videos and that are sending me emails and asking questions. And I encourage people to send me. I don't have any problem with people sending me emails. I want you to send me emails and send me questions. However, it's almost becoming unmanageable for me. I'm just getting so many emails, and I'm trying to answer them. So I'm going to ask that people. Sorry, I had a slight interruption there. We were talking about emails. I would ask that you hold your emails to the end of the day, because a lot of times I'm going to answer or talk about the areas that you're worried about or you're concerned about or that you had problems. And also if you would limit your questions, if you can send me an email, always make sure you send a picture, because I don't have time to go back and watch and go and pull up the videos and try to figure out what you're talking about. Send me a picture and try to limit it to, 1 or 2 questions. Don't, try not to send me 5 to 10 questions in one email. And again, the only reason I'm asking this is because when you get 50 emails a day and then you get people in the 50 emails asking you 10 questions, and then, then you got 50 times 10, so next thing you know, you got 500 questions you're trying to answer in a day, plus I'm trying to trade. And generally that's what I'll do. A lot of times I'm waiting on setups, and I'll read an email or two and try to keep myself from getting too wrapped up in watching the prices and just using the downtime to answer emails and things. So but it's just really almost come to the point where it's almost getting unmanageable, and I don't want to pass up anybody's questions or not answer anybody's questions, because I've always prided myself and in answering quickly and trying to answer all questions. Even to, I've even answered questions of people that have never bought anything from our website or anything, and so I treat everybody the same. I don't, but it's getting to the point where we may have to change that, and not because I want to charge people to or make money off people, but I have to find some way to make this manageable. And I could get somebody else to come in, and I could get my office assistant to answer questions. But she can't answer trading questions. Only I can answer those, so she can't help me with that. Sure, she might could answer problems regarding manuals or downloads or lost manuals or whatever, but most of the emails I'm getting, the majority of them are questions about trading, and so nobody can answer those but me. And so there's no way I can get help with that, to be honest with you. So but it has to be manageable for me at the same time, because it's taking up so much of my time. And I hope that makes sense to everybody. And again, I'm not discouraging anybody from sending emails. Feel free to send your email questions, but try to hold them to one, maybe 2 emails at the most if it's critical. And again, try not to send me your questions about every trade or each trade as you see them today during the day, or why they fail. Wait till the end of the day, and if I don't discuss it in the video and it's still something that's on your mind or you need help with, then feel free to send it to me. Because I think we could eliminate a lot of emails just by waiting till after the video is over each day, so that I'm not getting because it never fails. There'll be one critical place where where people get tripped up, and I'll get 25 people email me about that same question. And so if I get areas like that where it's common, I'll make sure I discuss that area in the video or circle it or something, so I'll remember to talk about it. And generally areas like that are pretty obvious, and so I'll probably circle them and talk about them anyway. So hopefully all that makes sense to you. And again, I don't want to discourage anybody or feel like I am discouraging anybody from sending questions or emails, because I want to continue to do that. But I have to keep it manageable, where I can do my trading, and then once my trading is up, I can be out of here within a couple of hours, because that's why I originally became a trader, because I wanted to, it's a time management thing. I wanted to gain my freedom and my time back. And I'm really getting to the point where I'm tying myself so down to this thing so much that it's becoming a job again. And I enjoy it. It's a job that I'm addicted to and that I love, and I love doing it. So, I don't want it to sound the wrong way. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about anything or don't want to answer questions anymore, because that's not. So don't take it that way. Just understand that I'm limited to the number of questions and emails I can answer each day. So, try to respect that, because it's not about me really too. It's about, giving others opportunity as well. So, because I can only get to so many of them a day. And I've gotten to the point where some of them I'm answering, I'm getting them today, but I may not get around to answering them all till tomorrow, unless I'm going to stay here till 10 o'clock tonight. So, wasn't very long ago I could answer them all during the day as kind of the day progressed, and hardly carried anything over. But now I'm carrying over, a dozen or two emails every day into the next day. And so I've got them stacked up before we even start the following day. And if I was to be sick or take a day off, man, I can only imagine what it'd be like when I came back. That would be stacked up. It'd take me hours to get through them all. So, and a lot of them are just redundant, the same questions from the same areas, and people asking about the same area multiple times. So understand this, that, even the perfect trade sometimes fails. There's generally a reason it fails. You're not reading the price action right, or you're missing something. But even perfect trades will fail. So, there's not always a reason why a trade fails. Although 90% of the questions I get, there probably is a reason it failed. And people just, one thing I think people do is that they try to apply the rules liberally, and, they're trying to make trades based on the rules. The rules are important. You got to put them in place and you got to follow them. But there's still a bigger picture. You got to take into the entire picture. What are prices doing? Are they trending up? Are they still in a trend channel? Have we had a break yet and a retest yet? There's just so much going on that you got to take it all into account, and it's all important. And just to give you an example here, let me show you right here. We got this little tight trend channel. This is an obvious channel coming up here, and it's fairly strong. But look what's happening here. It's fit really well until it starts waning a little bit here. Notice how it's getting further away and further away and further away, and then we get a break. That's a clue that you may get a break. That's your first clue. And you could have actually had this trend line in place before this low was even made by drawing it off these first two right here. And you can see if you drag that down, it's the same line. So you could have had this in place. You don't know, it's not confirmed. You don't know what's going to happen there, but you could have had it that early. But when you draw it there, and or either you get it off these first two closes right here, kind of these first three bars, you can see that right there. There's your trend channel, and look what happened every time prices touched it. And so it was easy to get that off of those first two swings. If you didn't find it there, you could have found it here, and then you just drag it up and find where it fits. And it was fitting all the way up until right about here, and even then it might have still been fitting. It's probably more like that right there. And this is where it starts to wane right here. These last couple of, notice how every time it got up here and touched, it kind of turned down until right here it couldn't get up there, and it turned down. Then it goes and it still can't get up there, and that's a signal that this thing is getting weak, and that may be a reason to stay out right here and maybe even reconsider this one. You definitely want to wait on a second entry after this is happening. Another clue that this thing was turning over, some people asked me about this second entry right here. Notice what happened every time prices came back to this EMA previously. Look what happened right here. It immediately bounced prices. Right here, it immediately bounced prices. Right here, it immediately bounced prices. But look what happened when it came back this time. It went straight on through. It didn't reject prices at all. That's a clue. And that's what, that's a clue. Is like, hey, maybe I better wait on this second entry. Notice the new high, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. Another clue, look how this low is lower than this one. Look how this low is lower than this one. Notice how most of these trades, the lows are higher except where you got a couple of traps here. But that's just a clue. And when you get lower lows and they go right on through the EMA and it doesn't bounce right there, that's not a good sign. And so you got to take that in mind. And notice this trend coming up here. We had the break. Guess what? It goes up and tries to make a new high and makes a double top, and it sells off again. So it's following the rules. And another thing, another reason not to go long in here is that you got this trend working in another way. Wait for the trend line break and the retest, which was right here. And that was pretty easy to find that line off those lows, even if you didn't have it off the highs. And notice that's the same line. You draw it off those bottoms where it fits the best, you drag it up, and look at there. And there's your first break. And then there's your attempted retest. It couldn't make a new low. It was too strong. So then maybe you consider starting to look for longs, and then there's you a second entry long right there. This is kind of a trading range too, so you got to be careful because you're starting to see prices on both sides of the EMA in here, and that's a clue, just like right in here, that you're in kind of a trading range. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So, and we'll go back and talk about all the trades as well. But the first trade I saw this morning that I really liked was here. We were kind of in this trading range. We were coming off the high side, and you got a first entry here, and it's not a very good setup bar right after the open. You might have considered going long right here. Actually, I probably should have drawn that one or circled that one. Let's just go ahead and circle that one right at the open. There's a long right there, and I should have circled it. It's not a great setup because it's a doji, but still the same. It's a failed second entry short. Notice the new low, first entry, pullback, second entry. So it's a failed second entry, and really it's not even a failed one. I think it got enough to, let me just verify that, 78.75, and you see it got enough to get to get a scalp. But it still looks like a failed second entry, so it's probably going to act like one. And prices are coming off the low, headed back towards the high. And you got to be thinking, hey, we're probably going to try to come up here and test this. Remember what we talked about yesterday? Prices are always heading someplace. And so then we come up here and we hit the high, and then we're headed lower. And by this time, you've really got strong support right here. So you might have even thought about using range rules in here, but I just think there's too much overlap. There's not a good setup here, and by the time you get this second entry here or here, it's not a real good setup. There's just too much overlap, and the bias is down. We always have to remember the bias. And look at this big. We traded down into this trading range, so there's a downward bias. So we're better off selling than we are buying anyway. And if you'd have bought either one of those, you would have got a good scalp out of it, but they're dangerous. They're too risky in my opinion. So you make a lower high here, you get a nice reversal bar, and if you'd have drawn that line right there, you see that we touch it again, and and you drag it down here, and it fits perfect on this side, and it kind of fits in there for like a median line, and so it all looks real good. And so that's another chance to come off of that trend line with a nice reversal bar. And you might have waited on to go short here, but by that time there's a lot of overlap, and as long as you kept your stop right here, you had to ride this out. But if you didn't like it, you could have gotten out of this trade multiple times here on these dojis and moves down before it actually broke on down. Do you know it's going to break down and go like this? No, there's a chance because if you saw the channel, but the odds are you might bounce right here. But look what happened. It went straight on through, and it goes straight down. And where does it bounce? Right off the lows where you expect. But you don't want to be going long here because the bias is down. And then you get a chance on a second entry short right here, a little doji. Again, you had to ride out all that stuff, but it goes down, and it's good for a scalp. And then it reverses. And notice this little trap. You got double matching lows. It breaks down and turns up and closes right on its high. So that's a failed second entry short right there for the most part. Same thing is kind of over here, and you can go long right there, and any runners actually would have survived here, and you could have ridden these all the way to the top depending on how you played this. Um, so it was a nice setup. Sorry, my phone's ringing there. I'll call that one back so we don't have to stop the video. And then this one, the reason I circled this one um, is because there is a lot of overlap here, and it's at the very highs. But let me show you what I was looking at. Here were your lows across here, and your last closes across this top. So that's kind of your support resistance line, and we were above it, and they were testing it. Nothing could close above it. So its prices are failed out the low side of this trading range and got back in. So what's the odds that what might happen is it goes back up here? Plus it's a second entry. Notice this. You got a new high, you pull back first entry, pull back second entry. And if you didn't like that one, you might could have tried to get in here. And at the very least, you figure you're coming to here, but you may come all the way back to here. And remember again, prices are headed somewhere. They're coming off all these lows, so now we're headed to the highs, to test the resistance areas. So enough reasons to take that trade. It's a little more aggressive because of the overlap, and I hope I can remember. I'm going to come back and talk about this because I got some specific questions about when it's okay to come out to trade out of congestion and when it's not, because sometimes you'll see me mark trades out of congestion, other times you won't, and I'll tell you it's not a good trade. So it's, usually you want to wait on a trap or something before you trade out of congestion, but there's reasons like right here, the trend line, if that you might have had in place across those closes. There's just different reasons you might, there's multiple reasons to think going long right there, but I circle it in green because it's still risky, and it's a calculated risk that it could tick up there and fail and turn back down and test these lows again. But it went higher. It breaks out of the little trend channel. It pulls back, and that's a breakout pullback long. But also it's a failed second entry short, because look at this. This low is lower than this one, so you can count this as a new low. First entry short, you come up second entry short, it fails, and it's a breakout pullback long. The trend has suddenly looked like it's changing. Look how bullish that move is, and look at it go. So it's a little bit more aggressive, but it fits our rules. The next trade, now this is the difference here. Notice where this congestion is right here on this breakout pullback long. Obviously you're at the highs here. You're at the high of this trend line. You're at the high of this. That's a dangerous place to go, and because what's probably going to happen here is it's going to break out and fail, and look what happens. And it pulls back. But notice that this congestion, it is at a high, but it's a little bit different because you got this possible trend line, but you may not have had that. You got to be a little better to figure that out. You got a second entry long. You've got, you're testing the previous support and it's holding again. There's different reasons. This congestion is totally different than this congestion, and that's what people, you can't just put liberal rules to it. You got to take into account everything and where it's happening and that and so forth. Then you get a pull back to here again. This is a first entry and it's very bearish. If you draw your little short-term trend line, there's really no break and retest. So this one was a little aggressive, and if you might have missed this one, but there's some other reasons to enter this one that you might have missed as well. And I don't have this line there, but notice those matching lows there. And this is the little trap I'm always talking about. Notice that little one, you got kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4 test of that line, and you get one tick below and it turns straight up. So you could have considered going long. That's a little more aggressive, but there's reasons, there's a trap there, and there's reasons to consider that, but it's more aggressive. Same thing here. It's the first entry after coming off the high side, but it's coming right off the trend line, right where you'd expect prices to bounce. There's been no break of the trend line. Everything still looks pretty good. So if you wanted to take that trade, you could, and look at it go. And then finally here you get a two-legged pullback to the EMA, to the trend line. You get a nice little small bar, chance to go long right there, and look at it go. That was a good trade right there. And it's not as aggressive because it's the second entry. So different reasons to like that long, but notice how we didn't get up there, so that it's starting to, starting to look a little suspect. And even if you'd have taken the first entry here, as long as you kept your stop below the signal bar, of course, there's not a good setup, and by that time you get 3 overlapping bars, 2 of them are dojis. A lot of reasons to skip that first entry and wait on this second one. And there's enough reason here, there's also 2 tries to go lower, a double bottom. There's different reasons. Somebody else, I get a lot of questions about that. When do you count off the highs and when do you count off the bottoms? Moving up here, you're counting off the highs because the trend is up until you start to get a trend that's going lower. Then you start counting off the bottom. That's when you switch gears. And you got a failed second entry short right there. Look at that new low. First entry, second entry. So there's a long right there. Let's go ahead and mark it. There's a long trap there, failed second entry short. And you might have been hesitant to go short there anyway, because you got your trend line break, and this is just a kind of a short-term trend line, and you're looking for a possible retest anyway. You don't always get a retest, but that's, sometimes you do. Most of the time you do. It may not be a new low on a shorter term one, but you still get an attempt to retest in almost all cases. And then guess what? You get 2 legs back and a second entry long right there. And if you had drawn this line, you've also got to bounce off the trend line. So hopefully you can see that. And there's another great move on that retest. So it's, hopefully all that makes sense, but you got to take the whole picture into account. And another reason to know that you might have got a bounce here is that you had this trend line coming down. You got a break. And you got a couple of legs down to a new low, 1 leg, then a little correction, a second leg, and then it reversed. And you kind of had a trading range here, but you kind of had this sloping channel. But evidently, most people saw it as a range, and also there's the gap up here. I didn't even talk about it, but we closed up here yesterday, and we opened right in here around 8:30, so there's a gap there. And prices are going to try to fill that gap. So, and this is a perfect example of how the market plays with you, and it tricks you. Notice this big leg down, then we go into this, and we try to go lower, and this break lower here served 2 purposes. For the biggest part, this is just a trap, but this trap serves 2 purposes. It traps in a lot of shorts that try to trade breakouts. There's so many losing traders that this is where they want to get short but it's too late to get short here. And that's what they don't understand. But this is where they think they should get short. And sometimes it will break out and do just like that, but it happens so rarely that you'll never make any money in the long run trying to trade breakouts, especially in the ES. So don't try to do it. Just, you got to get in up here and not down here. And so, this serves 2 purposes: to trap in all these shorts. But guess what? All the people that went long here, this is where their stops were, their safety stops, and it takes all the longs out. And so they got to all start buying back up through here once they realize they've been duped. They were in properly here when they were buying these lows and these pullbacks, but they ran their stops here and they duped them. So this serves 2 purposes. It traps in new shorts, and it traps out longs that were buying just a tad too early. And you'll see that happen. That's exactly what happened here. And there were some other places where there were some traps like that. That's what they're doing. They're just running stops, and they're creating traps. And that's why this thing suddenly burst out of here like that, especially this one, because this was like the final that they all gave up. And look at how that moved. those bars open on their low, close on their high, open down here and close on their high. This one opens on its low and closes on its high, opens low, closes high. That's what causes that sudden burst is they start hitting. Everybody stops. All the longs, new longs are coming in. The shorts are having to exit. So a lot of buying happens right there. And same thing right here. A lot of people tried to sell the top of this trading range because they know they usually fail. And it was good enough for a scalp, but a lot of people don't buy it for a scalp. They're trying to get these moves like this, or these moves off the lows like this. And suddenly it bounces. So look at that move. They all had to start exiting. And then the longs start coming back in again. The ones that didn't get in here or ones that want to add on or whatever that see this trend. So I hope that makes sense to you. And we're about 30 minutes into this thing today, so I'm going to wrap it up and call it a day. Hope you had a good trading day. I hope you understand about the emails, about the fact that, the comments. I'm not going to turn off the comments. If you cause trouble and you don't really want to be on the site, I'll just, we'll just start banning those people. And but I'm going to wrap it up for today. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.